So in this lesson we will take an overview of what is happening in the world. As a country wise, who are doing what, and where India stands, what are these clusters I just mentioned to you before, what different clusters in the country are doing, what are they focusing on, okay, and what future growth path that we should look at. So if you look at the top 10 producers of metal castings, it is led by China today, okay, and if you look at the growth in China from 12 million tons in 2000 to almost doubling of that, 24 million tons in 2005, to adding another 12 million tons and coming to almost 35 million tons today. It is now the world's biggest producer of castings. India, interestingly, in the last 10 years, almost every year or so, they have crossed some country, okay. They crossed Russia and then Japan and Germany, and last year they crossed USA to become number 2 producer of castings today. That is India, and USA is still close to us, then Russia, Japan, Germany, and Brazil, Italy, France, Korea, Turkey, and Mexico. Other countries are also coming up fast in this. In terms of number of foundries, if you see, China has the largest number, again followed by India, and then USA, almost every year there are 50 to 100 foundries closing down. So number is coming down rapidly in USA, and also in Europe, number of foundries are closing down primarily because of non-competitiveness and also environmental concerns. It's not environmental concerns only, it's also because of not being very competitive. Now if you see the growth, and this gives you a good picture of how countries are growing. You can see the rapid rise of China and also India, okay. And you see that the two blue lines, the USA, in fact we became number 2 not because we grow that fast, but because USA has come down fast. So we have now become number 2 because of that. And total world production is now almost 80 million tons per year. But if you look at foundry productivity or capacity per foundry, average foundry, interestingly if you see China is at the bottom of the group here, followed by some of the European countries, okay, followed by Russia, USA and France. But guess what? At the top we have the German foundries, which means Germany has not very large capacity, okay, but very few foundries. So few foundries producing a large amount of castings is what giving them the scale of operations there. So if you see who is number 1 or 2, it depends on what you're asking. If you say total production, okay, China is number 1, okay. If you say foundry productivity or capacity of average foundry, Germany is number 1. If you say value addition, USA leads the pack, primarily because they focus on defense castings. If you look at quality, Japan is still the king. The question is what India will become, and we have to discuss and think about that. Now you have to think about this, and we will maybe ask this question again at the end of the whole course. Now if you look at, this is important, if you look at the breakup of the production worldwide, you see 47, almost half is grey iron, followed by ductile iron. Ductile iron nothing but grey iron with a few additions to make the graphite spheroidal, so you have better properties, okay. And non-ferrous, which is primarily led by aluminium, is also significant at 17%. We will review these 3 figures, okay, once again. And if you see the worldwide growth, okay, ductile and steel and non-ferrous, all 3 are increasing rapidly. All of them are increasing total production. But in terms of percentage, and we can see comparison with respect to India, we are producing 70% of grey iron compared to less than 50% worldwide average. And if you look at our non-ferrous, it's only 8%, aluminum is only 8%. Even ductile iron is not very high, only 9%. Which means if you see the world trend, our aluminum production, actually I mean aluminum casting production and the ductile iron casting production can easily double. The capacity is there. Okay, just look at the world averages, and if you're looking at our export as well as our own requirement, that's the clear market and the clear path of growth. Okay, that's how our graph looks like. Grey iron is continuing to grow. Okay, the red one. Grey iron production is continuing to grow, but if you look at other ones, ductile iron, steel, and aluminium, they are almost stagnant. That is where the major growth will happen at the cost of grey iron. So we have to really look at that as the writing on the wall. Now where are we focusing on as India again? 1/3 of castings produced in India go to automobile sector. Clear? Okay. And if you look at another two areas, which is your sanitary, which is at 8.57%, and pipe fittings, which is 7.7%, both of them together about 16%. The next biggest sector is sanitary plus pipes and fitting at about 15-16%. These are the two big sectors here. Unfortunately, both of them are highly competitive sectors. So we are unfortunately stuck in a market where competition is too high, valuation is not so high. Whereas many other areas, okay, where the valuation is much more higher, okay, only thing is you need to develop a core competence in those areas and those applications. The opportunities for growing, including aerospace and defense. Aerospace, someone is mentioned us to that there's a 50,000 crore worth of castings to be produced, no, total manufacturing over the next 10 years. That is only commercial aerospace. And commercial and military aerospace and defense together, we are looking at 1 lakh crore worth of business, manufacturing business. And partly because India is now trying to put a rule that most of this defense have to be produced in the country, at least slowly over a period of time, we have a lot of opportunities coming up. Once you figure out how to do this, get into the game of getting into the defense. Exports wise also, Indian foundry industry is doing pretty well. And if you look at the share, most of the exports are done by large foundries because you need also infrastructure to be able to export that. But small foundries are not doing that bad either. I mean 13% of share is coming from small foundries. So this is growing, and then this is the map of the foundry clusters in the country. So we have redrawn the map of India by putting those red dots, and the bigger the dot, the larger the number of foundries in that place. So if you see the big clusters are in the north, Delhi, Agra, Jalandhar and Ludhiana, which is one big segment. On the west you have Rajkot, Bhavnagar, Surat and then Ahmedabad as one big cluster. Then you have one big cluster in Maharashtra starting from Bombay, Pune and going down to Kolhapur and entering Karnataka at Belgaum. And then we have at the south we have Bangalore, Coimbatore and Madras. In the east, Howrah itself is one of the big clusters in the country. And in central India you have a few clusters around Indore, around Hyderabad, around Raipur and one more cluster near Ranchi and Rourkela and things like that. So they have traditionally formed around either automobile clusters like near Delhi and Pune and Chennai, or near steel plants or iron ore production kind of places. So these are how the foundry map looks like. And if you go a little bit focus, each cluster does already specialize in certain things. So if you look at Rajkot, it is the biggest cluster of investment castings in the country. Okay, and they focus on some of those textiles, oil engines and pumps and valves and all that. If you go to the Kolhapur sector, traditionally, initially automobile, sugar industries, a little bit of farming and pumps and valves, that is the focus of Kolhapur segment. Belgaum segment more or less closely mimics Kolhapur. Okay, but if you go to Coimbatore, which is traditionally a textile hub, okay, you have a lot of foundries coming up because to supply parts for textile industries. Okay, and food processing is another big segment in Coimbatore. Howrah traditionally always has been sanitary and railways castings. And remember, a cluster also helps, in a way people share the expertise, they share common resources, so and customers also know, okay, if you want to get railways castings or sanitary castings, go to Howrah. So in a way it creates an image for all the people in the cluster there. And Jalandhar and Ludhiana, because of the farming revolution in the north, a lot of farming castings and also automotive pumps, fans and all that. So this is how the picture of clusters in India looks like at this point. The big question is, should India continue to be strong in castings, or should we also start closing down our foundries and let Africa produce castings in the next 10 years or 20 years? But if you look at the major figures, if you look at materials, we are among the top 10 producers of bauxite and iron ore and coal and zinc and few things like that, which means that we have the raw materials available right here. We also have the next big raw material, which is manpower, one of the largest pools of engineers and polytechnics and other skilled people available in the country. And not to forget, we have our own big market. So we can supply, we need castings for our own country. We can't be importing castings from other places. So because of all these reasons, our foundry industry is growing. If you see the compounded annual growth rate, it is 30% over the last 5 years. It's a big growth by any means. And a lot of employment potential is there, a lot of export potential is there. Only thing is, most of the foundries in India are small and medium foundries. And they are mostly manual labor, and they are mostly not automated. So if you want to get into high quality and high frugality and consistency and fast delivery and some intricate castings, those segments we need to invest more onto technology also. Okay, so that is the summary of this lesson. World market is large and is continuing to grow. We are among the top 5 producers, but each one has their own advantage. Especially Germany has the largest foundries and gives them not only economy of scale but also the investment needed to acquire high technologies for quality and cost. Okay, and as demand is growing up, but production in the West is coming down, there is an opportunity for foundries to grow in the East, particularly India and China. Okay, and this is our scene in India is dominated by small and medium foundries. Most of them are ferrous castings. In fact, if you look at iron, grey iron, ductile iron and steel, 90% of castings are ferrous castings by weight. Okay, and automobile continues to be the growth path for the foundries.